In this video, we're going to look at the weekly claims for unemployment insurance, also known as the Jobless Claims Report. This is a report that comes out weekly from the Department of Labor, a government agency that collects this data from the various state unemployment insurance offices. If someone, for example, loses their job, then they're likely to go and apply for unemployment insurance. And when they do that, it's going to show up as a claim for unemployment insurance, jobless claim. So this report gives us an indication of how many people are actually applying for unemployment insurance, which becomes a proxy for people recently unemployed. And the way it's portrayed is we have the week ending initial claims, and SA here means seasonally adjusted. We also have it not seasonally adjusted, but as usual, seasonal adjustment means that we remove any changes over time that are predictable based on the seasonal changes in the year. Normally we'll use seasonal adjusted data unless otherwise specified. So let's go ahead and just cancel that out for now. Based on the most recent data as of this video, the week ending January 14th, 2022, initial claims were 190,000. Okay. That is down from the prior week, January 7th, ending with 205,000 initial claims. So that's a 15,000 decrease the most recent week from the prior week. That would be a good sign for the economy. I mean, if less people are applying for unemployment insurance, that likely means less people lost their job from the week ending here to the week ending here. It goes back even further. It goes back to the prior week, December 31st, and that week ending, we had 206,000 jobless claims. So a pattern here of moving down, again, a good sign going back 3 weeks. And then it even goes back to the prior year. So the prior year is in reference to the most recent week. So the week ending January 14th saw 190,000 jobless claims, but the week ending January 14th of the prior year saw 240,000. And so that change is pretty significant. Again, a good indicator. So in this particular report, we're down from the prior week, we're down from the prior week to that, and we're down from the prior year. 190,000 jobless claims is a good indicator compared to what we've seen in the past weeks and year. One of the issues with this report is it tends to be volatile because it comes out week to week. When you have weekly data, you get a more erratic indicator than if you have monthly data or quarterly data. One way of dealing with that is we can use what's called a 4-week moving average. And that just takes the initial claims for the most recent week, the week prior to that, the week prior to that, and the week prior to that, which isn't here, adds them up and divides by 4. And that gives you an average here of 206,000. And then we can track that over time. And while it might be hard to see that in your mind, I can show you a graph that illustrates the importance of a 4-week moving average. You can see in this graph, and this comes from the report on a different page, the volatility of the weekly initial claims is much greater than the volatility of the moving average. The moving average smooths things out and gives you a better sense of trends. Okay, week to week you see these fluctuations, but you can see how the trend here is up and here the trend is more down. You'll see this most often with weekly reports, but sometimes it'll show up with monthly reports as well to create the same smoothing out. So the pattern is similar. I mean, you've got a lower number of initial claims than the prior week and the week prior to that and the prior year. Okay. So still a very good report. Another useful piece of information that comes out in this report is the insured unemployed. This is the number of people that are unemployed and actually collecting insurance. So 1,647,000 in the week ending January 7th. And that's up from the week ending December 31st by 17,000. And it looks like if we compare the most recent week to the week ending December 24th, it's down. And if we compare the most recent week to the prior year, it is also down. So generally a good report, but a little bit of an uptick here in people collecting unemployment insurance. Now we can take that information and we can do the same smoothing out that we did with the initial claims and create a 4-week moving average. So again, you would take the current week that is represented here, ending January 7th, add to that the prior week, and the one prior to that. Divide by 4, and you would get this 1,673,000. And same idea, you're looking at the smoothing out of the volatility and ultimately in a better position to spot trends. Just like with the initial claims, we're not particularly interested in not seasonally adjusted. And then lastly, this report gives us information about the percentage of the labor force that is collecting unemployment insurance. So if we know that 1,647,000 people are unemployed and insured, and we know in the labor force, it actually tells us down here, there's 145,292,485 people, we can calculate the percentage this is of this. So let's actually do that here. See if we get the right number. So we've got the 1,647,000. We divide that by the 145,292,485, and we get 0.011, which is 1.1%, which is exactly what we see here. So that means that 1.1% of the labor force is collecting unemployment insurance. And you can see how that's changed. It's pretty much stayed the same from the prior week. It's down from the week prior to that, and it's down from the prior year. So overall, a pretty good report on the economy. Economists like the jobless claims report for two major reasons. One, it comes out every week, so we get frequent data. And two, there is no margin of error because we're actually pulling real data from the state unemployment offices where people are applying and where they're collecting unemployment from. Oftentimes with macroeconomic reports, we have to do sampling. We have to take a random sample of a population and then use that to extrapolate to the economy as a whole. That creates that margin of error. But with this report, we don't have that because it's real data from an actual government agency. So it's very credible and it comes out frequently. The downside to the jobless claims report is that it's not giving us a complete look at the labor market. And you can see that. First, with the jobless claims, for example, this is only showing people that apply for unemployment. So 190,000 people applied for unemployment compensation the week ending January 14th. But likely there were more people than this that actually became unemployed because not everybody that becomes unemployed applies for unemployment insurance. So that's a limiting factor to the report. Also, not everybody that applies for unemployment compensation actually qualifies for it. So this number, the people that are unemployed and collecting unemployment insurance, and this percentage, the fraction of the labor force that is collecting unemployment insurance, is likely understating the number of people that are unemployed in the economy and the percentage of the labor force that is unemployed. So as is the case with any of these macroeconomic reports, we look at several of them to paint a picture of what's happening. We would use the jobless claims report, but we would complement that with other labor market reports, such as the establishment survey, the household survey, the ADP report, among others. And that will give us a more holistic view of what's happening and allow us to kind of assess the health of the overall economy. Okay, let's wrap this up with a kind of time analysis of what's happened with the jobless claims report. And this is interesting because you can see here I'm going back to 1969. And, there's changes, obviously, and you have periods where jobless claims really go up as, you go into recession. This, for example, here would be the Great Recession of 2008. And you can see jobless claims really take off. Up until COVID, this would have been very impressive. And I mean that in a negative way. People would have rushed out and applied for unemployment compensation because there were massive job losses. COVID took this to an astronomical level. And if I go back, go back 5 years, you can see what happened. We went from around the 100,000 range per week in jobless claims all the way up to, over 6 million. And fortunately, as COVID lockdowns and other restrictions were lifted and people started to get back into the workforce, we saw a pretty dramatic drop in that. Okay? We're still higher, however, than we traditionally were. And that's something that may be with us for a long period going, into the future. But for the most part, we've alleviated the dramatic pain here of the COVID cycle, the COVID recession, if you will. All right, that's it for this video. If you have questions, let me know. Thanks.